It's
The thing
great.
about Tino is, and this will lead to like what I wanted to talk about their like wrap up conversation. He does not really care what anyone thinks, and he kind of alluded to this at the episode before this when they're at the cocktail party, and she was like, "What do you think my family would think about you?" And he was like, "It doesn't really matter. I'm going to tell them they have to like you." And I was like,
And her face, she had a face too. It was
at
like,
that in that conversation.
yeah, she was
Yeah,
like,
because it's like that's not how it works. Like, don't you
mm-hmm,
want your family's honest opinion? He seems like the type of person who like number one doesn't care what anyone thinks, just like point blank does not care, and number
mm-hmm,
two like cannot take or will literally reject any type of information that contradicts the narrative that he has spun for himself,
because
and that's
yeah,
so
yeah,
dangerous because it's like you need those outside people checking in on your relationship. You need someone to be able to spot those red flags that your rose colored glasses are not allowing you to see in a
mm-hmm,
relationship. Not saying that Rachel is just like a glaring red flag, but it's just like if this is how he's moving, just like in this is a personality trait.
mm-hmm,
This is a trait that he has. If this is just how he's moving in life, just like ignoring other people's opinions and not using them. I'm not saying that like you have to take on other people's opinions or like just because someone thinks differently about your partner than you do, that your relationship
mm-hmm.
is doomed or like you have to agree with them. But if you're introducing your partner to a loved one, it should be because you value that loved one's
Mm-hmm.
opinion on your partner. Um,
Right,
and
right.
so that's a very dangerous attitude, I think.
Nah, for real. And it really stuck out to me when they did talk after because it was like they adore you. And I'm just like, what do you
He was
listen,
so like
they
dismissive.
might have liked Rachel after that, but adore, like,
I didn't like how he was dismissing her because
yeah.
I just chalk that up to like he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He's pushing ahead with his narrative, whatever.
Hmm.
But for Rachel to be sitting there saying like I did not feel comfortable, I did not have a good experience, like he's telling her that he cares about her and all this stuff, but he can't even like pause a conversation to dig into that some more and to try to like actually reassure her instead of just saying these blatant statements that are like
Hmm.
obviously untrue or just like pushing ahead in the conversation and not like validating her feelings at the
Right.
very least. Like that was just so irritating.
That's gonna translate into other things, like if they're together, other issues that come up
Yeah.
with that
This is
type of
how he
behavior.
is. Like
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah.
a one-off situation. I feel like we've been getting glimpses of this all season. Like this is just how he is. He's very
Right.
dismissive.
Right.
He's very much so just like headstrong almost to a fault. And it's
Hmm.
not cute. Um and then he just pushed along to be like, "Oh, I'm falling in love with you." And she was like, it was the weirdest lead up ever. She
I
was like,
was just
I
about
have
to
something
say
to
that.
tell you.
Yeah.
Like it was so weird. And like to me, I felt like in that moment they both were like, huh, like we're so weird and like we told each other we love each other in a weird way. But
Hmm.
like to me, like I do not want my first experience of telling someone that we're in love with each other to be so just like jilted and awkward and like
Right.
corporate. Like
I can't think
to
of
me is like
like,
a
yeah.
signal of just like a lack of cohesion in a relationship.
Mm,
If a moment that is that big is just so like as a viewer, I can tangibly feel how uncomfortable that moment is. Like that is just that's a problem.
for real. And like that's why I wanted to speak on that some more because it felt like this was probably the weirdest like hometown experience I can remember seeing in my short like, watch history. But like it made Tyler's whole thing not feel as weird because like
Yeah.
coming onto this, like we already mentioned the whole like my parents adored you thing that was crazy. But then he also said, like, I don't remember if it was to Rachel or in the confessional as they were going to sit down. He was like, I did not expect my parents to be like that. And I'm like, wait, that was that whole thing was
He
completely
doesn't truly
surprising.
evaluate
Like,
people. He just
like
lives in his
what?
little Tino
Yeah.
world with his Tino narratives. and just it completely ignores how people actually are, how they actually
Right.
present themselves, and what they're actually feeling. If it's not in line with the narrative that he has concocted.
Right.
So he was able to
Right.
see through his narrative for 2 seconds and be like, "Oh, these characters that I scripted in my mind are not reading their lines. That's
Mhm.
weird."
Yeah.
That's where that was coming from.
I don't mean to be, like, weird or anything, but this should not have had a positive ending. Like, how that ended between those 2, like, that was a complete switch up, as you mentioned. Like, the music changed, like, it started playing positive music in the background and
I
everything,
was like, "I'm not happy."
but how do you transition into that? Like,
Yeah, I was like, "I don't
if the
feel good."
like, that's something that you gotta really evaluate the relationship and, like, what's going on. If you meet the family for the first time and it's completely just, like, nothing positive to draw from it, you gotta
You gotta really pause.
you gotta talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not how that's supposed to go.
If you want more of where that came from, be sure to check out our full episode recap. It'll be linked in the description as well as pop up on this screen.